Hi, welcome to Bullet Point Bulletins, the weekly wrap-up show. My name is Bruce Burke. I'm here with my good friend and co-host Tedd Huff of Fintech Confidential, who also happens to be our sponsor today. Bullet Point Bulletins currently has some limited sponsorship opportunities for our daily episodes and some longer, more hyper-focused long-form episodes we're planning. If you'd like information on either of these opportunities, please feel free to reach out to me directly on social media. Now I'm going to send it over to Ted, and he can tell everyone exactly what we're going to be discussing on the show today.
Hey, Bruce, thanks for inviting me back after last week being completely under the weather, but we still got it done. This week, we're going to be talking about the World Wide Web inventor, Tim Berners-Lee, as he plans to secure your and my data with a solid pod. We'll also be covering Jack Dorsey continuing to pledge his allegiance to decentralized social media. The SEC also has charged influencers with fraud with stocks. The former FTX CEO Sam Bankman-Fried has been arrested. That one's going to be fun. And then, of course, we're going to wrap it up a little bit as we're coming here towards the end of the year and talk about how global payments has really defined 2022's economic challenges. So, Bruce, let's kick it off with Tim Berners-Lee and the different things that he's doing.
Well, as you know, he invented the internet. Not Al Gore. Everybody thinks it's Al Gore, but actually he invented what we refer to as the World Wide Web. DARPANET was the was the internet, but Tim popularized the term World Wide Web and actually had the vision to kind of say what it was going to be. Not as far as it is now, but.
So when the one thing I thought was really interesting as I was diving into this is, this is a decentralized approach. So it's very similar to the approach that Jack Dorsey was talking about with Blue Sky, but from a slightly different perspective. It is really cool. So I looked into it, started looking at some of the things that they have, like a pod browser is what they call it. Where you can really go in and look at all of your data and really detail, figure out who you're going to give access to, who you're going to take it away from. So it really gives you the ability to explicitly consent people to have access to your data. Now, what I thought was really interesting also about this is you have to install a server. You either install it locally on a system that you own and you control and you manage and maintain, or you put it up on the cloud, whether it be AWS or another service, to manage your data information. It's really provides the freedom and the control over that data. But my concern about that is, yeah, it does give you the ability to do that. But if you're working with a third party or another entity, does that not take away some of the decentralization? Does it not take away some of the control? There's just a lot of things that kind of leaves it open with it.
Yeah, the idea of working with AWS and my data, like I'm kind of already doing that now. So like, what am I doing by changing over to this? You know what I mean? Cause Apple's running on AWS in a lot of cases, right? iCloud essentially is AWS, right? Most of the Google stuff, let's face it, is AWS, right? So to me, if I was going to do this, I'd want to run my own server. But then if you're running your own server, right, does this stuff have security built in? Is this stuff got, fireboxes and, all that, stuff that we used to have to do in telecom just to keep people out of telecom switches? I can only imagine with internet switches, right? Like how much people are trying to piggyback, get on DDoS, and so, it's not for the common guy, right? It's not for the moms and dads and the grandmas, right? I mean, they're not going to want to spin up a server and have to maintain a server, right? You can't run a server on a laptop and shut the lid on it and walk away. It's got to be connected. It's got to be powered. It's got to be right. This is not something for the casual user.
No, and one of the things that came to mind for me is that, does this allow you to provide data in an anonymous way, or is it purely specific data about you and all of the data about you? So does it fall into PII, or how does that really work? And they really haven't gone into a lot of this, and the solid pods that they've created are really interesting in how that's done. I start to look at it from the fraud perspective. This feels like a very, very easy way to start creating synthetic IDs. So if you're wanting to commit fraud, and I'm managing the own server myself, although centralized identity services are targeted all the time, does this not give you a lower resistance for those who think they have the technical know-how to build their own servers and to run their own servers, but end up leaving it wide open, that they can then have that data taken and then another server created that duplicates that? Now, they may have tools and things in place. I look at it from, I love the idea of it being decentralized. I love the fact of me being able to own my data. I love the fact of being able to give explicit consent. I want it to be anonymous. I want it to be secure. And last but not least is I want to have the ability to monetize my data. And, like we've talked a number of times, Bruce, my friend John Roa has launched a similar service. It's centralized. It's not decentralized. But the idea is for you to control your data, both anonymously or I don't know how I would say it, but non-anonymously.
Publicly.
Publicly.
Yeah.
But it's not really public because you're giving access specifically to entities with specific amounts of data. And the more data you give, the more you can monetize it. So these advertisers and these other groups are bidding for your data. So the more your data fits their need, the more it's worth. And you actually get to monetize.
You get paid before they put the ads to you.
Yeah, well, not only that, but if they're trying to figure out the demographics.
Targeted. I'm guessing, right? It's targeted. It's more demographic oriented, right? They're only going to, if they're paying to get to you, they're only going to pay for the people that fit the criteria that they want, right? So it's going to be more targeted. In this with Tim, with this and Tim, he's been, he invented the internet, right? So it's like, I think it was 20 years ago we celebrated it was last year, or it was 2019, I think was the year. 2018 or 2019 was the 20-year anniversary of the internet. So, he's been at this internet thing for a long time, and he's done many different iterations of different projects that he's worked on in relation to the internet as a concept, right? This to me seemed like the one that's gotten the most traction. He's got some significant investment in this already. He's got $30 million in this. And I think that with the concept of self-custody being pushed so hard right now, and this being a Web3, right? He's saying this is Web3. He's not saying metaverse. He's just saying Web3. I think that this is going to get a lot of traction right now, along with the self-custody stuff. It's going well. Whether it could be a centralized, whether it could be a protocol that could be dumbed down, or a service that could be provided that's still somehow decentralized, but the average user could use it. That's the secret sauce in this whole thing, in my mind.
Well, and it's being leveraged right now by the UK's National Health Service. I have it highlighted up here on the screen. For those who are watching, those who aren't watching, I'll read it for you. Interrupt's platform is being tested by UK's National Health Service and by the government of the Belgian region of Flanders. And
Dokily.
I was waiting for you
I wanted
to
to say that so bad in the episode when I was filming it, but I didn't.
and I mean, Flanders plans to use the pause to let the citizens choose how they share their personal data. So sounds
could that
like,
mean anonymously or non-anonymously in how they share it, or just what they share? That says how, not what.
Right. So that's a good question. I don't know. Don't try to dive in and learn more about it. And, you know, it's really high level stuff that you're looking at. I did not pull down the source code and look at it. I didn't have enough time to do that. But, you know, it is available on GitHub. You can download it. You can look at it. There's a lot of really, really neat stuff that's around it. But I would just wanted to point out the BBC did a trial with it for watch parties, kind of like what's the television company here in the U.S. that does all the, you know, who watched what and the ratings and all that. Nielsen, right? They're doing kind of a Nielsen thing here, where they there was watch parties and they wanted to see what you know, whether they wanted to user data that was generated during the watch party. They wanted to see whether the user would delete it or want to share it and all kinds of things. So I think this goes beyond just data, alphanumeric data. I'm thinking this somehow includes video. Like when you say watch party and multiple friends stream a program at the same time, I'm thinking like, you know, when you share on Apple now, right? Like you can share on your iPhone, you can watch a episode together, right? So you're doing FaceTime or something during this, right? And you're, you know, chatting, you're throwing emojis, you're, you know, throwing masks on, you know, whatever, you know, but that seems to be what is indicated here. It doesn't talk much about it. There is a sequence that I found on YouTube. It's probably 3 or 4 days old, where Wired magazine sat down with Tim Berners-Lee and the CEO, Jack Dorsey is his name. They sat down and had a conversation about the whole thing. And that's about a 25-minute thing. I haven't had the time to watch it yet, but I did post it behind what I posted on LinkedIn about the story. I think that may show a few more details, but again, it was two guys in high-end chairs sitting on a stage that was, you know, so again, it's going to be very high level, I think, you know, but it might show some more details and there might be some stuff there. I think it's probably going to be the most detailed information until you break into the source code that you're going to find. Yeah. And that ties really closely into, like I mentioned, what Jack Dorsey's doing with Blue Sky. And it was really cool to see this week. You posted about him doing the 14 Bitcoin pledging that over to Nostr, which is short for notes and other stuff transmitted by relays. That was shortly after he pledged that he's going to be he's pledging $1 million per year. I bet Signal wish it was 100 million. But
make things go a lot smoother.
Yeah, for real. But $1 million a year to Signal. Signal is really interesting because it is super secure messaging system that I think has a potential to become a social network itself. So we'll see how that goes. But the idea for Nostr was really to create a censorship resistant global social network. And I think that's a big deal. If you look just after you posted this, Twitter has started blocking URLs to other social media outlets. So if you're promoting another social media outlet like Mastodon or Instagram or LinkedIn or anything like that, Twitter's going to block that URL. They're not going to allow you to go there from there, which kind of defeats the purpose, I think, of Twitter.
Wasn't social media all about being open and friends and interconnected and, interoperability? And I don't want to get into the commentary on Elon and the Twitter thing, but what I think should happen, that's obviously a model of centralized power that, isn't working. And, I'm still getting slammed by bots anytime I mention the word crypto. I'm getting, hey, join our whiz bang gang, and they got one follower and they are hitting me and 30 other people up at the same time, and what I think is that centralized model is broken. You know what I mean? It's not working. And I think that Tim Berners-Lee, Jack Dorsey, and Fiat JAF from Nostr should all get together and figure out a plan, because what Jack wants to do with Blue Sky, what Nostr, so Jack published let's call it a white paper or a blog about his thoughts on decentralized social network protocols and what he thought he should be, right? And when he did that, that's when these guys, this Fiat JAF, hit him up and said, hey, you should look at this Nostr. This is the stuff, right? And sent him the link. And Jack apparently read it, and it kind of aligned with his thinking and thoughts and feelings. And so he came back around and 24 hours later said, here's your 425 grand, let's get to work, and there's been more since. I started following the guy from the Fiat JAF on Twitter, and this all took place on Twitter. The guy got 425 grand to fund his project from a tweet.
Yeah.
That's organic. That and it's real. And there was a big article I read today earlier about it that this isn't some billionaire that's doing it. It's great that Jack saw it and everything else, right? And it's great that the guy who got the 425 grand said, "Hey, it's great that I got the 425 grand, but the fact that Jack put his good housekeeping seal of approval on it means a whole lot more to me."
Yeah,
and so that's interesting to me. Is that's something that may turn into something from, just it's an open source project, Yeah.
And I mean, the reason why I brought up the whole blocking the URLs is that it's a blatant display of one of the things that's broken, like you'd mentioned. It doesn't, the interoperability has already started to crumble. The censorship side of the house has gotten, I agree that people shouldn't say certain things. They're going to say it, but I think it's gotten a little bit overboard on some of these things. So
he seems more reactive than proactive, which is never good for a company. The real issue is, all this time he's spent when he set up headquarters in Twitter, he's no longer at SpaceX and he's no longer at Tesla, and he's pissing everybody off in California that owns a Tesla, and they're all diving out of orders, and his stock's going through the floor at Tesla. And even though SpaceX is doing fine, the stock's going through the floor, and some of the big investors in Tesla want him to step aside now because he's not doing the job. He's not there. He's out there, being the cheap twit, instead of running Tesla. So,
yeah. So I'm looking forward to seeing what happens now that Jack has put his seal of approval on Nostr. Also, at the same time that we talked about Tim Berners-Lee, this decentralized idea around social media, around social communications, around socialization in general is going to be really, really interesting. And I'm wondering how we're going to be able to manage and control our perspective on things, especially with what just happened with the SEC deciding to go after those influencers. And I'm trying to pull the article up here. For some reason, Daily Mail is not wanting to participate.
No, it's in
with
the
me
UK.
over here.
It takes a long time for it to get here.
I got to go across the pond.
Yeah, you got to go
but,
way over there, wake somebody up, get a copy from the newsstand. They're asleep over there. The newsstands are closed, Ted.
Yeah, no, we're not doing that. But really, just the Securities and Exchange Commission, caught these guys pumping and dumping stocks through using Twitter and a whole bunch of different things. What I thought was funny is, we always talk, we joke, but we're serious. We're not financial advisors. What we're talking about here is just our opinions, just what we're thinking. I don't propose to be a trader of any sort.
I have no investments. Zero.
I can lose my money all by myself. I don't need help of anybody else. AKA donations.
You didn't have FTX, did you? You didn't have FTX.
No,
oh, good.
No, I didn't have FTX.
FTT.
Yeah, no FTT either. I've got a couple, but I mean,
nothing that's going to hurt.
No, nothing's going to hurt. Like we've said in other episodes, I have enough in there that I feel comfortable that if it all went to zero tomorrow, it was fun. It was fun. So, no big deal. But we're looking here. These guys decided, there was a complaint to Securities and Exchange Commission. They used Twitter. They used Discord. They used podcasts. They used a number of different things to manipulate the stock. And what I thought was funny, so like here, Stock Market News just calls them out, the Atlas Trading Group. And these guys were always like showing themselves with, I think this is McLaren here.
The Lambo gang, right? They all got why is it listen, you know what they should have? They should have an SEC agent at every Lamborghini dealership in the world. And they're going like, okay, before you buy, we need to do an SEC background check on you. Because they always go for the Lambos. They that's the first thing they do. Look at the guy. He's wearing beat up jeans, an old crappy pair of sneakers, a t-shirt, got $100 worth of tattoos on him, but he's driving a McLaren.
Well, but then we got these guys here that we're in conversations. We've got this guy here.
Well, of course, they got to have the guy with the blue hair. Yeah, we got to have the blue hair dude.
Dude, I'm tempted. I'm tempted. And then it would
go well with your stack that you got going there. That would be the thing.
Yeah.
Well,
I got some natural highlights
back
kicking
in the day, so I can't say anything about the kids and their haircuts.
But we've got all these different things going on. But the reason why I was scrolling down here, where what was on as of Wednesday last week. These are the things that I got the biggest kick out of. So these guys,
they're profiles.
They're profiles. Like all my tweets are just opinions. I'm not a financial advisor. This is a parody account. I mean, they're like the massive amounts of CYA now is crazy. But they've even stated a couple times, hey, we don't expect anybody to buy the stocks. We just talk about them. Knowing full well that people are going to look at their tweets and their posts and all these different things and showing all their flashy stuff, and they're going to go, I know he said that he doesn't do this, but he calls himself like a day trader, right? And he can do this and he does that. I should probably do the same thing. And that's just kind of what happens here. And we go back to the discussion we had a few weeks ago.
It's not hard. It's not hard to get people to believe it. You got to get some followers, right? And the one thing in doing the research on this stuff, right? The one, his name is PJ. I forget the last name. He goes by PJ. He's one of the defendants there. He was featured in an article that I found in looking for names and information and where they all are and all that sort of thing. And he was featured in an article, and he must have sent out a press release because it was written up several times by several different places that he hadn't been wrong in 200 plus days in trading stocks every day. That should give the SEC like a pause right there. Nobody is that good. Nobody never loses 200 days in a row if you're trading every day. And it was all over the place with this guy. The article was written up like 10 different places that I found that with that same quote of 200 plus per day or 200 days plus of no hits.
Yeah, I mean, even Ray Dalio doesn't win that often, right? he wins long term. Yeah, he wins when other people are losing. You've got the same thing with
Kramer dreams about 200 days in a row.
Oh my goodness!
All this stuff. I mean, when people start ratcheting up like that, I know they're paying their taxes and but what it seemed like what happened, it was never really said, but there was one guy, the last guy that's listed, his last name is like Rezanek or something like that. He apparently was not on Twitter, was not on this, was not on that. He was the podcast, and they would come on as guests. And apparently, he was the one that kind of started cooperating because he kind of felt bad or something and went to the feds. And apparently he was the one that was on the Discord chats and recording the Discord chats where they're like, yeah, we got him on another one. That's how they got popped, essentially, is they were going on Discord chats and bragging and doing all their bro stuff about getting over on the public, using pump and dump schemes, hurdle it up.
What's crazy is you got these guys who are intentionally doing pump and dumps that are doing all this stuff. And then you have folks like, and I got to bring her up, but Kim Kardashian, who basically gets paid to be an actress to basically say this is here and this is what, and she gets fined $1.26 million for not disclosing that she actually got paid to promote this. Like, she got paid to promote a product, like it's a Pepsi, like it's a bubbly water, whatever it is, right? She got paid to promote it, and she got fined $1.26 million for not disclosing that. These guys intentionally defraud people, and they're at $100 million in profits. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens with that. But I find it interesting is that everybody beats up on those who are in the crypto space, and I mean there's some truth to it, but comparatively to what happens in your traditional finance. We'll talk about mortgages, loans, stocks, day trading,
everything
securities
in the market. Everything in the market has schemes and cons and frauds and everything. If there's money, there's going to be a
money
con
to
there.
be made. There's going to be a con attached to it, and that's where we go back to again. Just do your research. Make sure you're doing these things, and you're not just taking somebody's opinion for stuff. There's plenty of, like, for stocks, if you're looking to learn about how to trade and what it all means and how it works, you don't have to go to these gurus. You don't have to. I was
watching an old episode of CoffeeZilla last night, right? It was about a year old, and he had a guy on, and this was before CoffeeZilla started doing the big guys, right? This is when he was chasing the MLMers and that kind of stuff, right? But he had this guy on, and he was learned how to do options trading, and he learned the hard way by taking it on the chin, right? But he started following all these people that were offering the courses and all that stuff, right? All the gurus, right? You're talking about.
Yep.
And he paid to take the course, and then he would do video reviews and blogs about the course, and he started comparing them all. one course against the other course, against the other course, against the other course. Some of them he learned from, some he didn't learn from. But what he came out to find is he just says to him now, hey, show me your P&L for the year.
Yeah. If
you're a trader, show me your P&L. You've got an account that you're working it off of. I know you're not mixing it with your finances. If you're dumb, if you're that dumb, you're dumb, right? But show me your P&L at the end of the year. Show me what, and that's his thing now. He's like, and he says out of all these guys that were offering the guru courses, 35, he stated 35, one should show him a P&L. And another one wanted to show him one from like 1987. This is one I did it once.
Yeah. So I guess where I was going with that is that if you sign up for a TD Ameritrade account, I think they actually got by Schwab. I think they got by Schwab. But if you sign up for their Thinkorswim account, they've got full courses that will teach you how to do every last piece, what the risks are, what could happen wrong, what could happen positive too. But it takes you through it, and you can do a simulation first until you feel comfortable, and then you can put real money into it. And you don't have to jump in, neck deep. And, I think those are great courses. I've leveraged those to show my kids, how to look at the money, how to look at the market, how to read the charts, how to read statements, all these different things. And I'm just saying, if you're looking at stocks, go to some place like that, learn from the free resources. Don't learn from some guy off the internet. Please, just don't learn for some guy off the internet. That's all I'm asking.
Another thing that this P&L guy said is when he'd find a new guy, and the new guy was, they're giving out that this is their recommendation, right, or this or that, and this. The guy would actually do it, but he wouldn't do it with money. He would just do it on paper. He'd do it in an Excel spreadsheet, and he would watch their stuff and see it. And he said he followed this one guy, and this one guy did, gave out all his, hints and tips and this and that. And the guy followed him to the T, and he was down 36% at the end of the month. And the guy said 30 days later, the guy went on his channel or whatever and said that he was up 1.4 mil on the trade. on if you had followed me and did what I did for this last month, you'd be up like 1.4 mil, and the guy was down 36%. He followed it to the T.
That's crazy, man.
It's absolute insanity, man. So, don't do your own research. I don't know anything about investing. I have never invested in one doggone thing. Seriously. I'm not a contrarian in investment. I just didn't feel comfortable enough to invest money in something I didn't know anything about.
Yeah.
So there you go.
So speaking of somebody getting into something they knew absolutely nothing about, let's jump over to the FTX founder and former CEO, Sam Bankman-Fried. The dude got picked up. He got arrested by the Bohemian authorities. Man, I thought it was kind of funny that they put him in one of the jails that is listed by so many different people as being horrendous conditions. I thought it was a little funny. I know it's not nice, but I thought it was kind of funny that they did that. But you've done a ton of research around this, man. I watched a handful of videos. I watched a couple of different things. I mean, I'm going to share the article that I ended up looking at, and they have a handful of videos here. But yeah, I mean,
Mr. Ray wasn't very pleasant about his assessment of the corporation and the way that it was handled. He was the guy that also was brought in when Enron collapsed. Mr. Ray was the CEO that was put in charge when Enron collapsed and shut down Enron and tidied that whole package all up and got their people back their money and whatnot. So he's seen a mess, and he said this mess was far beyond the Enron mess. And he says the funny thing was right off the bat, he said they were keeping all this this stuff, all this high level crypto trading margin, blah 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 blah, by using QuickBooks. They use QuickBooks at FTX to keep track of accounts.
okay.
They use QuickBooks. But the biggest thing that I found out of all of this, and I saw it last night in a conspiracy video, let's call it. I stay up late and just tune into different stuff. This kind of brings it all full circle with a lot of the same things we've been talking about, Ted, for the last couple of weeks. The trials that they've been doing for central bank digital currencies at the Atlanta Fed, the New York Fed, the Boston Fed, and other countries around the world. And all of this money that Sam gave in political donations, over $100 million, he was number 2 in the U.S. behind George Soros. Number 2 political donor this year. And there is the concept of he wanted FTX to be the foundation for central bank digital currency. That's why he was spending all this time, all this money in Washington with the regulators and giving all this money. He wanted to make the platform part of the central bank digital currency.
So
now, that's conspiracy idea, but is that really that far out there?
You know, I could see how you could pull a lot of that stuff together. Man, honestly, with this whole thing, is it gets stranger and stranger and stranger by the minute. But I think it's going to hurt. And I've said this before. I think this has really opened the eyes to the regulators, opened the eyes to everyone, really, in how important it is to not have confidence in a centralized system, whether that be manned and owned by the government, whether that be manned or owned by an individual private company, a public company. It doesn't matter. There's an ultimate level of weakness when something is centralized. And I will say it again. If you don't have the keys, it's not your crypto. If it's not your crypto, you can't stop anybody from doing what they want when they have the keys. So this just highlights on that. And I think it's going to make things very interesting. One of the things that I also noticed is in the last week, 3 really, really big law firms have shut down their crypto practice, citing too many legal risks for the business that exceeded the risk tolerance for that business. That says a lot.
That's interesting. What's his name? The accounting firm Mazars said we're no longer going to do crypto. And they also said that we are no longer backing the report that we already issued for Binance. But they I think they kind of salvaged, rather than like throwing complete dirt at Binance, right? They kind of salvaged it by saying, we're not going to do for any crypto firms at all anymore. But it's the fallout from FTX has reached so far, right? There was a co-CEO, ex-co-CEO, Ryan Salame. Apparently, he's the one that went to the SEC and started throwing Sam under the bus. But Ryan Salame, when he was, he lives in the Bahamas also. When he was in the U.S. and he was in the Berkshires area, invested $6 million in some restaurants and businesses in this small little Berkshires area that has their own currency, by the way, called Berkshires. And invested $6 million in these, little mom and pop restaurants and stores and whatnot in this little, shopping old town area kind of idea, right? And now these companies are going to take it on the chin because, this guy doesn't have that money anymore, so the stuff is going out so deep and wide and going to hurt so many people. It's really something, it's really sad is what it is.
Well, and they're all running into, and one of the articles that I read, and I was trying to find it and I can't seem to find it for some reason, is just they are having to attest to the funds that are available, and you can't really, and you're attesting to funds that are available of funds that they don't actually own, that are loaned out to another place that you don't know if they actually have it or if they loaned it out again, and so you can't really attest to reserves on hand and all these different things. So not only did the same guys that did Binance, others have done it as well. And so
I told you, everybody's working with the same $1 billion, Ted. There's $1 billion in the center. Everybody's got their hand on it, and everybody's saying, it's mine. It's mine. But CZ, I mean, he took the hits. I mean, I think he had to give up like $5 or $6 billion in the last couple of days, right? People did a run on Binance, and he's still
they stopped trading
water
a couple times.
Yeah, it's probably moving money around to cover assets, right? Yep. Selling assets to cover more assets. But somebody asked him outright. There's now some kind of thing that there's going to be some kind of fine coming out because he was trading securities from the beginning, that some kind of heavy fine. It's another 2.1 billion or something like that. Yeah. And they asked him directly, are you going to be able to sustain this fine that you're going to get for 2.1 billion? And he says, we're going to be okay. And I think my lawyer's got this. So I don't know what that means, but it's got to be. I mean, they're all getting run on. All the prices are going down. This company had a loan out to that one. The contagion is, I think, spread across the industry with FTX. I think everybody had a piece of it. Kevin was getting paid. Mr. Wonderful was getting paid big bucks. Shaq was in it. Steph Curry, Tom Brady, all these people. Larry David, for God's sakes. Oh my God. It's the one thing that I think is refreshing is the Department of Justice is already going to all the politicians and celebrities that received, shill money, right? And are saying, we want it back. We want it back. We want you to give us that money back. And they're already starting to give it back. Apparently some of the bigger upper echelon political party over, committees. I don't know. I know nothing about that stuff.
And I saw a lot of the PACs are sending money back, that the Democratic National Committee is sending money back. I think everybody that realizes where that money came from and honestly realizes how much of a negative political capital that would be if they didn't do that, are giving it back. They aren't giving it back out of the goodness of their heart. We all know this. They're giving it back because they need the visual appearance that they actually care about the people that were hurt. And that's really all that's about. So that next year when the elections hit, that
I gave
that
money back.
and watch, it'll come up.
I approve this message and I gave the money back.
Exactly.
But what I hear is, what's his name? Our local here in Tampa Bay, Tom Brady. He was paid to do commercials along with his ex-wife, right? But also, I read or saw somewhere that he took $165 million of his own fortune. And I don't know if that's his sum total fortune or, what he has left or whatever, but he put $165 million in FTX. So he got paid in some tokens, I'm guessing, right? Probably got some FTT for, there's probably some cash. I mean, Sam was taking the cash in and just giving it out, apparently. So, but you think like, wow, you work all those years, you've been the hero, you worked year after year, playing quarterback, and now all the money you made all those years, and now you're ready for retirement, and now Sam's got it all.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I mean, 2022 hasn't been all bad news, though, man.
No.
We definitely. I mean, I tell you what, this has probably been one of the most dramatic years in fintech, in the weirdest ways. Normally we're talking about things going up, things going down, but these
some
personalities,
deals, there's some mergers, some deals,
I mean, 2022 is the year that no fintech went public. No fintech SPACs. None of that stuff happened. Last year, man, I remember talking about this week we got 2 SPACs. Last week we got 1 SPAC. Next week we have to, it was like a SPAC every, once a week, twice a week, 3 times. I couldn't keep up with all the companies going public.
Blank check SPACs. That was the buzzword of blank check SPACs. Just give them a damn check. They haven't even figured out what they're going to do yet. We're just going to give them a check, and they're going to figure it out.
Yeah. So
I'm going to start a SPAC. Me and you, Ted. What do you think? We start a SPAC and send me a check. I'll figure out. We're going to do bulletins with it. We'll be worldwide. I don't know.
So
Fintech World Tour is back on.
So we were talking about the stocks and all the SEC with the influencer fraud, and now we're kind of going back and looking at 2021, where there were a bunch of SPACs kicking off and doing really good. This year we haven't had any SPACs, but the market around fintech and payments has been really, really strong. And I'm pulling up here on the screen a handful of companies that have done really good. TransferWise had 103% growth from July to December, going up. There's one thing. So
under the new name, it's Wise. It was TransferWise. Why the changeover? Do you know anything about that? I was surprised.
Well, so it's no longer just about transferring money. So if you look at it, this is the same. This is the same thing we talked about Apple computers becoming Apple, right? And then last week, what was the other one that Starbucks coffee becoming just Starbucks? Well, now you have TransferWise instead of it being TransferWise. Now it's just Wise.
Yeah, well,
because they're offering other services. They're offering more services, so they're really doing that.
And they're doing pretty well by offering more services. $7.9 billion market cap with 103% growth. That's it's a good market to be in, right? Cross-border.
Well, and
payments.
if you look at Payoneer, they came into the market as a SPAC, but they have 39% growth at a 1.9 billion. Market cap. You've got Worldline, that crew there over. I've worked with them in a number of times. They did a bunch of acquisitions this year. So I don't know how much of this is organic growth, but it's still growth. You've got Flywire, MasterCard. I'm not big surprised at MasterCard. They make their own rules. Same thing with Visa.
Yeah. $335.4 billion. That's that's a lot of rule making.
It is. You've got Fiserv, who bought up so much of the market. They bought up First Data. They bought up a whole bunch of other things. So I think see that going, but they've also talked about, how are they going to skinny back their expenses as we run through this economic turmoil? And then you have PayPal and Adyen also. Now, some of these guys aren't doing a lot of growth, but even Adyen, I'm super surprised that Adyen's even on this list, is because they have a very narrow product set and they have a very narrow way of doing it.
As far as income, though, they're only they're a little more than half of what PayPal's doing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's, and PayPal's got twice the growth they have, right? So, when you look at this stuff, I remember Payoneer when I was working with Gil Barzeski at E-Time System in, oh my gosh, 2007, 2006, Payoneer was doing terminal placement in town there for merchant acquisition, right? They had a guy, and I was running into him because E-Time System was putting out, we had international mobile top up and all that stuff. And we were doing placement throughout Philadelphia also. He was a T-Mobile master dealer for T-Mobile prepaid. But anyway, Payoneer was a little small Philadelphia-based company back then. They were just starting out in 2008, 2009.
Well, and with Payoneer, I mean, just talking about that one alone, because they do international transfers, the strong U.S. dollar has done nothing but help them in their volume and in their growth, right? So when you have that strong U.S. dollar and you're bringing that, crisscrossing that money across borders, you're gonna make a few extra points on those transfers. So I mean, that is the other thing that's really interesting is if you look at this year, the U.S. dollar just keeps getting stronger and stronger and stronger, and I'm looking forward to seeing how that all plays out. Will it help us with the Fed and the rates? Will it help slow some of that down? I know it has slowed some of it down a little bit.
Yeah.
Not as much as we all would like.
Another 0.75, I think, the other day. Friday, I think it was, Thursday or Friday, they dropped 0.75. So it's about 7% interest rate now if you want to buy a new ride or something like that, so.
Yeah, man. I was looking at refinancing a couple things, and it's just not worth it. It's just not worth it. But I mean, we look at it this way also, is the big focus has been on spending cuts. Everybody trying to figure out how to cut their spending, and a lot of these companies that we talked about are ways to reduce the number of hands that touch the money that's coming through the pipe. So I'm really looking at this, and the thing that I think we're going to see in 2023, I don't have a hot tub time machine, nor do I have a crystal ball, but I see that blockchain and payments really start to come into their own. People start to look at how to manage the data, how to manage the security of it. And I think people have started to realize how vital payments are to our entire ecosystem. It's kind of been that back office, kind of hidden away thing that you just kind of expected it to work. And, it's had its time in the spotlight, not all good, but it's had its time in the spotlight. And I think a lot of people are really starting to think hard and deep about it and trying to figure out how to make next year a lot better.
Well, I understand from an enterprise perspective, after personnel costs, which is usually your greatest cost if you're an enterprise company, your second largest cost is your cost of your payments and moving your money around and dealing with your money. That's your second largest cost in your company. So anything that's going to optimize, right? That's going to make it go faster, because that's a lot of the, stuff we've talked about, the central bank digital currencies. That seems like their main interest is to speed up that payment, right? And make that payment move, especially in those repos that they're turning around on a daily basis, I think that as we come into 2023, it's not going to happen at, January 1, right? But as we, we were talking about what the decade is and the dynamics of it all and all that, the last couple things. I think that as we're getting in towards the center of the decade, right? We're now into 23, right? As we get towards the center, the adoption will really start to take place. Jack's decentralized thing is just kind of getting off the ground, this blue sky thing, right? The Nostr thing is now in there, right? Tim Berners-Lee, they're doing some projects and some pilots. The central banks are doing it, and not only the central banks in the U.S. but worldwide, essentially, right? So I think that's going to be an overarching theme. I put a thing out on Facebook the other day that said self-custody of your money and your data are going to be one of the hottest topics of 2023. Everybody's going to rush to that. The thing is, something has to be set as a standard, because I don't want to set up a separate server for Jack's thing and then another separate server for Tim Berners-Lee thing and then another separate server for the Nostr thing. I don't need a server rack in my bedroom. You know what I mean? So there needs to be something that's set up, a centralized server to help decentralize thing. I don't know what the answer to that is, but I think there needs to be something like that. I found it interesting. I just got a thing from my power company talking about decentralizing things. My power company is now offering me a monthly bill I can pay that will give me access to solar panels that are not on my roof, and I can buy 1 kilowatt for $8.95. So I can invest in a decentralized solar farm that's not on my roof and get the cost savings from it, just like if I was a homeowner.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting as you talk about this. You don't want to set up a server for this and a server for that and another server for this. But I look at, so we talked about this last week, but I look at like the Stacks hardware wallet. What's stopping us from doing something like that?
Could that be a server? I think that's it's running low power. It is always connected.
But does it need to be a server? It's not. It's air gapped.
Yeah.
But the idea, though, of being able to store it there and then being able to decide, do I want to share my information with XYZ? And then I use some sort of air-gapped way to share that information with XYZ. And
well, they are how you move your crypto from your, let's say, your exchange account or wherever you purchased it from to your Stacks wallet is you have a app in between on your mobile device. Mm-hmm. But now, from my understanding, this latest update of iOS 16.2, you can now encrypt all your data. And I don't mean just your mail and your this and your that. Like almost everything that exists in your iCloud now can be encrypted end to end. And as long as you have your key, right, it is your data. So it seems like Apple, at the same time, all these guys are moving, even though it's centralized only to your phone. Is that decentralized or is that centralized? Nobody else has your information. Nobody else can really see it unless they got that key.
But it's still centralized.
Because it's in the cloud? Because it's in the iCloud, right? It's not on your local server.
Because it's owned by an entity.
Yeah.
Right? So that data is owned by that entity. It might be data about you, but it's if it's on their servers, it's still owned by them.
Yeah.
Now, they may not be able to access it, and I'm going to use air quotes, not able to access it, but that they put some sort of backdoor in there in order to help the Fed rallies.
Yeah. I I think it's interesting though that everything seems to be headed that way. When I think about the future, I think about it as a horizon line. Living in the Gulf area, I think of everything as we have horizon lines here, right? Where a lot of people don't see that. And I always think of the future as a road headed towards that horizon, right? And I'm trying to get this all on camera. And it's, doing the perspective thing. It's wider as you're closer to it, right? But it's narrowing and it's gaining speed as it's racing towards the horizon. And I really feel like the momentum for decentralization is really there. And I think the catalyst for decentralization is the fallout that we're seeing from it.
Yeah. There's a whole bunch of things that really the fallout comes from. There's all the censorship that has happened over the last 2 or 3, 4 years, all of the just straight up wrong information that's been sent out over the last few years. Not that it hasn't always been, but last few years have been really, really bad.
It's a lot easier to do it now.
Yeah, and then you got people that are misusing information or misusing money. So people are wanting to get control over it. And when I was at the MX Summit earlier this year, I sat down and there are cultures. I sat down with a couple founders that are really trying to help their tribe, their group, their people in their culture be able to feel comfortable with money and be able to feel comfortable with how to manage it. And there's a lot of distrust that was already in that culture. And I think what we're starting to see is that level of distrust is increasing in some ways, but it's also decreasing in others. And we've lived in a very modern first world problem area, and things have always gone really, really well for us. But we're starting to see some breaks in the wall, and there's just more concern now about it. So I agree with you. I think we are going to have more decentralization. I think we're going to have more tools of self-custody. I'm really, really interested to see what happens next year.
Well, in thinking about this whole thing, I wrote a blog about, I don't know, I'm going to say it's a year ago now. You were at the first social mobile payment show. You met David Schroepfer, the guy who wrote the smartphone wallet, right? And, his thing then was all about, be ready for what's coming ahead because, you're going to use your phone to pay at stores and and all that sort of thing. Well, regardless of what continues to happen, I still think that the mobile wallet, whether it's on your phone or, a Stacks, Ledger Stacks, right, or whatever it is, I still think your mobile wallet is going to be the most important part of a payments ecosystem, right? It's still going to be the number one thing, your personal wallet, even though it's not physical, leather with a Social Security card in it anymore,
Your personal digital wallet is going to be the one thing that you want to keep track of.
And that's enduring ever since. And I think it's going to be, and I think we're going to see more like we were talking about the other week. You already got your driver's license. I will soon on your phone. Right. Mm-hmm. And this is only just going to continue. That there's going to be more, there's more coming. And I think that, if you tune in every week and listen to us every week, you'll know all this stuff. And when you go to cocktail parties and soirees and whatnot, you can impress your friends with all your knowledge that you picked up listening to Bruce and Ted on every week, and you'll have all the answers to all those difficult questions that you get asked at cocktail parties.
Well, Bruce, we have covered everything under the sun, and you did a nice little plug for everybody to be sure to subscribe, like, follow, all that fun stuff. You can find this on Fintech Confidential on YouTube. We're rolling out this to be a podcast here soon, so you'll get to get the whole back catalog as a podcast and listen to everything that we've done as well. But we have all this available. Fintech Confidential started posting the bullet point bulletins on LinkedIn as well as onto our YouTube channel, and really would love for you guys to go ahead, like, subscribe, follow. If you want to be a guest on Fintech Confidential, please reach out via guest at Fintech Confidential. If you're looking to sponsor Bullet Point Bulletins or Fintech Confidential, go ahead and reach out to either myself or Bruce, and we will get you all hooked up. This has been a great time, Bruce, with us diving into all of these different things. And, you know, everybody's really liking the different pieces of content, both short and long form. We've been getting a lot of traction, a lot of viewership. I'm excited to see what else we can do. But, man, I'll let you sign off for the week.
So what I'd like to add to that, I don't need to reiterate what Tedd said about, you know, if you want to sponsor, subscribe, share, like, follow, do all that stuff that you would normally do. But really, like, going into 2023, we're going to start expanding into some more hyper-focused, some long-form episodes, and not just this format, but more drilling down a deep dive on one specific subject like blockchain or generative AI or chat GTP, or maybe not a product, maybe more of a vertical, right? But definitely some interesting episodes coming up in that. And we're also interested in, and I'm starting to put together some people that are interested, that are fintech startups, early stage entrants that are raising capital, that want to get involved in doing some pitch sessions via video, and us promoting your startup through a video pitch session. So I'm not going to get into a lot of details on that, but look for all this stuff coming in 2023 as we wish you well into the holidays, and sign off for the afternoon here.
All right. Thanks, Bruce. Have a great week, man. I can't wait to recap once again next week.
All right. Thanks, Tedd. All the best.